Welcome everybody to DevMad Talks. I'm Babu. I'm a senior Android developer, freelance, and co-founder of DevMad. Completely unnecessary, but carry on. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction because a lot of new members here and probably don't know the context of DevMad and the background behind it. So I'll start here. So yes, founded by myself, Paloma, and Philip in early 2021 during the whole quarantine lockdown thing. As a Facebook group for English-speaking developers in Madrid. So we felt we wanted to help developers who are just adapting to Spanish and Spanish life in Spain with a developer group. It can be quite important to participate in the community, but if you've got a language barrier, you could be disconnected for quite a while. So we're hoping to help that situation. But at this point in time, we're kind of just starting as a social group, but now we're starting with as a talk group. So yeah, the Facebook group has nearly 200 members and growing from a variety of backgrounds, web, mobile, backend, AI, ML, which is now very popular in our membership, data science, QA as well. It is a social group on Facebook. We met for artwork, drinks, pizzas. Everybody knows the top-notch pizza places that we found in Madrid. Picnics, and to discuss things all tech and basically action hero life in Madrid. We have attended code conferences together. We do skills exchange. We know people who are teaching other people new platforms, coding, mentoring, and also career advice, job posting. And if you ever want to talk afterward drinks, we also organise those. And basically, yeah, we're launching our series of talk events. So we've always been wanting to do one of these. We wanted to wait till membership was the right number and there was enthusiasm, and we've hit that, I feel. And together with Matilda and Daniel, who've been instrumental in getting this first event off to a great start. Thank you very much, both of you, for actually giving us a kick up the backside and getting this thing started. Yeah, we're really, really excited to have you all here. And also, massive thank you to Celonis. If you'd like to say a few words.
Sure. Welcome everyone, and thank you for the intro because I didn't know all of that, and I think it's very interesting to build this kind of communities, no? Especially for foreign people that are trying to adapt to Madrid, and I see a lot of meetups are in Spanish, so this is a good opportunity for foreign people, no? To be able to be in the loop. So I hope this is the first of a lot of meetups. Okay, this is your home, so you are welcome here. Just a few words about Celonis. So this is our main building, or the only one here in Madrid. We have 6 floors. We do engineering here, we do sales, we do marketing, we do a lot of stuff. So if you are more interested in position or something, just come to me later on. It's working. What we do process mining. That's part of big data. So we analyze how companies do steps, and we help them to improve them, to do less steps, to improve pollution, to save on pollution, to improve on timing and these kind of things. I can tell you more later. Okay. Important things. Around 8 when we finish here, we want to have some catering and networking down there on those tables. The bathroom, if you need it, you just go out that door, and it's a big gong there, you will not miss it. And behind the gong is a door, and there is the bathroom. Okay, so it's a little bit hidden between the columns, but it's there. Once we finish, if you need to exit, you have to go to the other floor, one above us, because that door will be closed. So reach out to me or Ingrid, which will be a girl around here, okay, and she will escort you to the door. And I think that's everything. So thank you very much. I think we are starting with Anton, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. This is my first public speech in English, so I'll do my best, but sorry in advance. I would like to thank MedDev, Celonis, Film Academy, Sam Altman and Nadella for helping me with the illustration for this presentation. So, some of them pretty odd, but thanks anyway. So, about me, yeah, that's me. I swear. Before I start my startup. it's about 25 years in programming and IT management, so it's enterprise game dev fintech, and about 4 years I'm built a static analyzer for SQL and things basic on them. So the DWHDF is last one. It's data observability platform for Snowflake. What the data lineage? This presentation is a superficial look to data lineage. If you want to speak about some technical things, I will be glad to discuss it later personally. So Wikipedia defined it like some data about data origin, and data flows, and it should help us to find some data issues and data errors. It sounds simple, but let's consider an example. Let's take an online store and see how data flows could be organized there. It's data flow diagram. You can see the system components, data flow types, and paths within the system. It's like things like warehouses, accounting, shipping, etc. But in general, we understand what we are dealing with. There are some downsides with the schema. It first has been drawn manually and updated the same way, and the lack of limitation details, just schema. So, lineage everywhere. Such diagrams can be drawn in various logical levels. We can also describe, for example, business processes. And surprise, we are the office of the company that just do this. Check it out. It's a screenshot from Celonis video on YouTube. And another one, I love it.
That's what we are trying to help people to
Yeah.
That's how company looks, and we help them to find the right path.
It's more understandable that.
It's a new Jackson photo.
So, why we need data lineage? If you work, hi Sam, if you work with your own pet project, you keep everything in mind. So, if you work with your friend, you can discuss things anytime. But as the wisdom goes, if there are more than one person is involved in the project, it's impossible to find the guilty one. So it's also well-known Brooks law that I need manpower to allow software project make it later. Frederick Brooks wrote a book, A Mystical Man Month, in 1975, detailing the experience of developing an operational system in IBM. They had an infinity budget and resources, but they still screwed everything up. So, what are the quotes that fit here? Peter Drucker, management consultant: if you can manage, you don't measure, or you don't. What you don't measure, or you don't observe. And let's look like this. And another well-known, it's Donald Rumsfeld's speech in Congress about unknown unknowns. There seems like there is prohibited to generate something with the Donald Rumsfeld. So I found the old one. Yeah. But it's curious, unknown unknowns looks like something like this. So there is a thing, when many people work in an IT project, it's usually look like this picture. That's why we have a well-known sharing system within the company. What I mean by that? It's like a Git for everything, documentation, tests, review before code. Recommend this one if you don't know what it is. Infrastructure as a code, architecture meetup, etc. It's an ideal sharing system. But in real life, it looks like this. So it would be great. All these things doesn't help us to answer for this question. Where did data come from? how it's transformed, who it consumed, and where potential areas of personal data leaks, and etc. So it would be ideal to have a schema illustrating the data flows across all your system. There are some products that can assist you, but you need to put all data manually in these systems. An issue with such system lies in the fact that its data with them becomes outdated immediately after you put it in the system. So, data lineage and analytic databases. When the company grows, an analytical database with data engineers and bound appears. Nice guys. And a lot of data transformation process move into this database. So if you work with records, you regularly receive requests from business users to fix some records, like this. So this is perfect time to ask the following questions. How the situation occurred? How much time spent in investigation? How much time to spend to resolve the issues you found? I know the company with 200 data engineers on Snowflake, and there are 15 full-time employers who dedicated to investigating issues in the records. Just imagine, 15 person full-time, it's about 1.5 million per year, I think. So take a look at these figures. As a result of research by various respectful sources, I can show you much more if you're interested. It's about data downtime problem. Data quality affects all labor productivity of all company for 20 persons. It's insane. And so the same for another numbers. So good news again that within analysis database, almost all flows can be analyzed automatically if you can parse a compiler for SQL. And we can create a tool that assists data engineers in resolving these issues. Yeah. Build a why. To build a Lineage tool, you need to have a parser and compiler, but downside in that database had unique SQL syntax, specific objects, special behaviors, etc. Some examples from Snowflake. There's the syntax for create some objects. It's 3 ways it not exists here. Some select from DB, it's double dot notation. It's about you can skip public schema and write it like this. Or for example, you can use the session identifier to define objects. Or you can the limit in Snowflake is not a reserved keyword, so you can name your object like limited. It will look like this. But my favorite one, it's from Spark. So it's like a lot of from here. Special object in Snowflake there is special object that you can find in BigQuery, Redshift, Stream Stage, a lot of them. So the special behavior, it's only one example. For example, here I can define primary key by 2 columns, by 2 same columns. Here I have many examples, but it requires detailed explanation that doesn't fit with this format. So creating something from scratch for your database, it's an insane idea, and that would can take years for implement. Taking some open source libraries, it's a bad idea too, because the libraries cover a very small part of syntax. I don't use specific syntax. You don't, but your colleagues do, external tools do. And in the marketing department will write SQL that you couldn't even imagine. So it's about Postgres, but you know, it's the same way. So you can Well, however, if you have a parser, it's not the final stop. You need to have a way to show Lineage to your users. So display schema. Essentially, you can use a mermaid. It's help, but only very simple cases. But another thing, everything the Lineage job visualizer if you are brave enough. So you can try. How I understand, the Celonis use D3, and SOG. We draw everything on canvas directly, and the next step we want to rewrite the engine to WebGL. And if you decide to do it by yourself, you should look into GraphVis. It's a C++ library to deal with graphs and etc. And then after that, your users start to ask you about search, fancy highlights, and a lot of things you don't want to do. So I can't speak about this topic until next morning, but I need to finish. So let's connect me on LinkedIn, and I'm ready to answer any questions, especially if it's about. Oh, thanks you. Very nice to you. Sorry for waiting.
Yeah, so let's do the next one.
Slightly clickbaity title, sorry about that. Just wanted to get people's attention. We will talk a little bit about hiring and all the rest though. Spoiler alert, I'm going to talk a lot. Somebody made a mistake of telling me I had 20 minutes to fill and I'm a bit of an overachiever. So I'm just going to talk really fast. But if you miss something, don't worry, I'll make the content available later. Somehow we'll figure it out. Any views are my own, they're not my employers, don't try and get me fired. If you have questions at the end, that would be really great, just so we can bounce through. I'd say one thing that gets everybody in this room together is receiving a message like this. I think we've all received 10 million variations of this, which is a rejection letter, really vague. And I don't know about you guys, but anytime I've gotten one of these, it has seriously pissed me off. Because software developers as a whole are solutions-oriented people. I don't see a solution to solve here. I don't see a problem that we could work on. And that's kind of deliberate on the part of companies, but I'm here to help you today. I've been on both sides of the hiring desk more times than you've had hot dinners. And I want to show you a little bit of insight of what happens on the other side of the black hole. Once you send off your application and it disappears forever, there is actually some thinking and consideration on the other side and a decision process. Before we get into that though, speaking as a hiring manager, I want to give you some context. The context is hiring is really, really risky. Headcount and budgets are shrinking. This year alone, there's been 250,000 jobs laid off in tech, according to TechCrunch in October. 2023 isn't over yet. And bear in mind that's 50% more of the amount of people who were left off in 2022. So I mean, that's kind of concerning as a manager, right? We got to do more with less people, and that's really hard. But it also means we've no room for error because we need our people to be working on hitting our goals, dealing with clients. We don't really have the time to send people on quests for hundreds of years to find the perfect candidate. So we try and be selective with what we do. And there's two kind of challenges with it. One is cost, and the other is what makes a good hire doesn't necessarily make a good employee. It sounds tricky, but we'll get to it. When we look at cost, time is a cost, and a massive time sink. If you want to hire for one position, you've got your startup costs, which is putting together a job description, getting that approved, getting that posted, and maybe there's like ads that go out for and all the rest. And then you got to create a technical test if you don't have them already. That takes a bit of time. You got to get that approved. Maybe you'll get somebody on the team to actually take the test just to set a benchmark, and then you go ahead with that. And then we have this lovely long list of per applicant time you will spend. I'm not going to go through each part, but what I will say is there is an awful lot of steps to get to a candidate you want to hire. You got to remember that hiring is a funnel. So if 200 people enter at the top, you're kind of lucky if you've got 2 or 3 at the bottom that you can choose from. But it's still a big time sink across all your staff, all the way throughout. The other cost is, of course, money. And when you look at the salaries that we offer people, and I've put some examples here, 40, 50, 60, 70K, that's not what it actually costs the company. It actually costs significantly more because straight away, Your employer has to pay a contribution for your social security, they got to pay for your benefits, they got to enroll you in all the insurance plans. If you use an external recruiter, depending on your relationship, you pay 15 to 20% of them. You obviously got to get them the machine, get them licenses, and all the other fun stuff. If you take the example of, say, a 50K hire, which is a pretty good salary here in Madrid, it actually costs the company more or less 90K to have a bum on a seat for a year. That's a lot of money to get wrong. If you have a bad hire, really hard to recover from that. But what I want to point out though is I'm not mentioning this for doom and gloom. This is informational. As a candidate, you shouldn't worry about this, but I just want to clear up that on the other side, this is the context we have to deal with. You should be trying to maximize your salary. You should be looking for the best salary you can get and negotiate as hard as you can. Don't let this kind of steer you away from that. The other consideration is that good hire doesn't always equals a good employee. You got to remember, every time somebody's interviewing, it's a persona, it's a mask, it's not a real person. Everybody's on their best behavior. So you kind of have to look through that mask and see where their eyes light up and see what is pure posturing. The other thing is people can kind of pretend to be somebody for a couple of months. That's why we have probation periods. Because for the first couple of months, they're agreeable to everything. But then, of course, they get comfortable, they fall back into their old habits. It's normal, happens to everybody. You have to kind of divine whether they've got good habits or not, or if their bad habits are bad enough where you don't want to take them on. So with all that kind of context in mind, why we look at why people are not getting hired and why you're not even getting your first interview, never mind actually getting to a stage where there's a hiring decision, really boils down ostensibly to two things. The first is you're applying for the wrong jobs. These are the wrong jobs for you. They don't match your profile, they don't match your career path. And what it really boils down to is you're not able to demonstrate an ability or a history of delivery. The other side of it then is you're actually applying for the right jobs. Your career matches, your tools match, all the rest, but you're actually projecting the wrong image. You're not fitting what they want. And what it really boils down to is you're not showing a persona of enablement. We'll get to a definition of that later. But the end result is you're seen as a risky or a bad choice. I want to be clear that you're not seen as a bad engineer or bad developer. It's just that for the role that they have and for the limited resources that hiring managers and HR teams have and all the rest, they just don't really see it worth it to invest time in you to bring you through the rest of the pipeline. It's not malicious, it's really just a really bad cost-benefit analysis based on the information that we have. When we talk about applying for the wrong jobs, we say wrong, and wrong for you given your career and skill set. Everybody in this room has fallen into the trap where you read a job description and you're like, hey, I can do this. Totally. And I would say in 80% of cases, that's 100% right. But can somebody who doesn't know you defend that? Can a hiring manager who's technical and they can see, okay, well these skills, they're transferable, it all matches up. Can they go to their non-technical boss, who's the head of sales or the VP of marketing, and actually fight that fight for you? In most cases, no, because that person's going to look at a CV, they're going to look at the job description, and they're going to say, shit, these don't match. They're not the same words. That's what happens. But when we say wrong, what do we really mean by that? You should be looking for jobs that are compatible problem domains. If you spend 10 years in gaming, you're going to find it hard to get into somewhere like finance afterwards. Because there is different skills required, there's different knowledge you're supposed to know. The same if you go to health. I mean, in America they have HIPAA, which is the legislation for storing health information. You have to be able to write code that conforms to the HIPAA legislation. Other problems are like, say, hard roads. You get an awful lot of people who are like senior engineers and they want to go to leadership. That's quite tough. And vice versa, if you're in a leadership role, a team lead, you're desperate to get out of somewhere, you end up going somewhere as a senior engineer. Unless you have a really good narrative, that's a hard road to go down. The same for employee to contractor and vice versa. Funnily enough, you wouldn't think there is a difference between these, but there is different mindsets in terms of responsibility and ownership. When you're an employee, you are going to get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. You have to go fix what's there. You're in a contractor, you say, fuck you, pay me more money. Here's my hourly rate. But those attitudes don't transfer across the different types of roles. Obviously, skills and abilities. If you've been writing Java for the last 20 years, are you really going to get like a, front-end developer job? Probably not, because it's not as obvious that they're transferable. But the main thing is your evidence of your ability and your history of delivery. And what it really boils down to is actually having really clear descriptions on your CV, on your LinkedIn, on your everything, of what you've actually built. The amount of CVs I see that people are just like, I did this job from this date to this date and they use Node.js. Like, okay, what did you do? What business problems did you solve? How did you help the company? Without that context, very hard to make a decision. Problem 2, right job, wrong image. what it really boils down to is to demonstrate a profile of enablement. This can mean different things to different companies, but the general rule is that you do your work the right way, put a little T in there because everybody thinks their way is the right way. But realistically, this basically just means be the person who writes their tests, who writes their documentation, who turns up on time, who tests their code, being responsible, being professional, making deadlines, being the kind of person people want to work with. Actually being a nice person goes a long way in tech, you would be surprised. Being a clear communicator, so like if you're not going to meet your sprint goals, you mentioned that at the start of the sprint, not at the end. That's obviously really helpful. But these last two are probably the most important. The first one is awareness of how your technical actions affect the business. You're not being paid to write code. This is like a huge misconception. You're being paid to solve a problem for the business. Code, more than likely, is the medium for that, and that's great, but you've got other tools at your disposal. You got to understand that what you're doing is in the service of either making money for your employer, or creating opportunity for them, or reducing expenses. It usually falls along those lines. And the last, participating in the developer culture of your team. This gets overlooked and underestimated a lot, but being the person who shares links, who jumps on calls, who does impromptu code reviews, who does the demos and that sort of thing, goes a really long way. And your profile should indicate these as clearly as you can. And how do we demonstrate these? What is your profile? Well, we talk about the big four. It's your CV, your resume, it's your LinkedIn, it's your GitHub, and it's your personal thing. We'll get back to that. You gotta be like 10 out of 10 on all fronts here. This sounds like an awful lot of work, and it actually is. It's a shitload of work. But we mentioned at the start, you're competing with over 250,000 more people this year because of the layoffs. Spending 2 to 4 weeks of this, actively working on it means not getting ghosted or rejected for the next 6 months or year or half a year and a half. You can use ChatGPT. It can do a lot of this shit for you. Einstein said insanity is doing the same thing over and over. The amount of people I see that just spray and pray. Same CV, send it out to every single job posting that has roughly the same tags or the same technologies. It doesn't work, so stop doing it. Try something different. We talk about your CV and your resume. What's really nice, as a hiring manager and anyone who hires people like this, seeing a personalized CV per role, not just the same base CV that's sent out all the time. Sending an up-to-date CV, you would be surprised how many people send out CVs that are 2 years old, 3 years old. Okay, well if you can do that with something as important as your career, would you do that with a client document? Don't know. People tend to use technical terms and jargon like way too much. You got to remember that your audience will include non-technical decision makers. We talked earlier about the head of sales and the VP of marketing. They're the people that are going to sign the check. So they need to understand what's on your CV and not just be bamboozled with like different names. And also talking about the business problems that you solve. It's all well and good saying I built a REST API that does X, Y, and Z. Okay, but for who? What did it do? How did it make the company money? How did you help the team you're working on? The big one I see here in Madrid, unfortunately, is that people sending the CV not in the language of the job description. If there's an English job description out there, sending a CV in Spanish isn't really a great start. The person reading it may not speak Spanish, or may not have the patience to use Google Translate. You should do. Start with a really great base CV. Go to Fiverr, spend $50, get somebody to do it for you. It's a really great investment when you think about it, because spending that €50 means you can make 10 or 20K if you do a really good job hop. So I think it's kind of worth it. You should tailor that then to every individual job. Don't write a new one from scratch. Take your base one, change some keywords, and off you pop. Obviously, you change it for the job description, so that means using the same phrases, the same keywords, all that sort of stuff. Where an awful lot of people fall down is not tailoring to both the company and the sector. When we think of the company, you go to any company you apply for, go to their main website, they've got a mission statement. Find the mission statement, find the keywords. I put Microsoft here as an example where they want to talk about empowering people and helping people achieve more. Empowering and achievement are words you should use all throughout your CV, because you want the person reading that to say, hey, they match the culture here. We're not going to have to try too hard, they're just going to slip in. And the same with sector. When you're talking about, like, say, a product company or a consulting team, you got to talk about your achievements in ways that make sense to those people. So if you're a product, you want to talk about KPIs. We increase user retention by 50% by making, images disappear in DMs after 24 hours. Great. Anybody who's doing product can look at KPIs, they understand the value that that brings, and you've achieved goals. If you talk about consulting companies, maybe you want to talk more about it in the context of actual money. So you say, hey, we help the client save 50% of their DevOps expenses by, I don't know, using elastic scaling and adding life cycles to their assets and storage. Great. Consulting company can see that and they'll be like, okay, we know somebody we can sell that to, or we already sell that to somebody, so that's a shoe-in. That's fantastic. Another part of your big four, your LinkedIn, gotta have a maxed out profile. The amount of people I see where it's just their name and that's it, reuse your base CV, copy and paste the whole thing in. Super simple. Where people fall down as well is having up-to-date information. A lot of people do not have their actual city or location, which means you're not going to show up in job searches. Or if you do show up in job searches, someone's going to look at your profile and the first thing they see is like, okay, well, you're from Serbia or you're from Ireland. This job's in Madrid. They're not even going to read the rest of your profile. You're kind of out. Same with contact details. Keep them up to date, your experience, your achievements. Put skills on the individual work positions. I bet many of you don't know you can do this. You can do your big skill thing at the bottom, but on every single position, put the skills you've used, because that means you're going to show up in searches more. Having relevant connections, big thing as well. Build your internal network where you are. Even if you're planning to leave, add as many people as you can. Build those connections, try and maintain them, because you never know what's going to happen 5, 10 years down the line. A new job opens up, they've started a startup, they think of you, whatever. And everybody in DevMad, you've no excuse now, you've all met, you're all friends, add each other, please. You also have to add some content beyond job hops. It's really annoying when you go see someone's profile and it's just like, I went from here to there, I went from here to there, and that's it. Show your interest in your craft. Post some links, post some articles. You don't even have to write the articles, just find ones you like and post them. Congratulate your teammates on deadlines made, talk about wins. Show your authority in your craft. Another thing I don't think people realize you can do is you can put links everywhere. At the top, you've got an individual project section, you've got a publication section. Go wild, because the more links you have between your GitHub, your website, and all your other fun stuff, that's more social proof that you have. Really stands to your authority in what you're doing. Part of your big four as well is your GitHub. I don't know if this needs to be said, but I think it's very clear. No one plans to review your code. If we see a CV, if we see a GitHub, if we see whatever, we just don't have the time to sit down and go through everybody's achievements through your whole GitHub. If you want somebody to do that, try and pique their interest. Make it easy for them to do that. Only have a few projects. Should be your greatest hits and not your entire back catalog. Especially with senior developers, you go and you've got 20 years of projects. You just see hundreds of different projects. I don't even know where to start. So I leave. And have interesting projects. You see an awful lot of people and it's like, here's my to-do app, here's my blog, here's my Twitter clone. It's like, okay, well, we've seen hundreds of those. It's okay to have them if you're getting started, but as soon as you're able to do something else, do move on to something else. Go beyond boilerplate. An awful lot of people build great applications with Nest and Ruby and Rails, but it's literally just like using the platform for you. Do something a little bit more interesting. It doesn't have to be a totally unique idea, but it does have to be a unique implementation that demonstrates your skills in some way. What I highly recommend people do as well is have some kind of breakable toy. What we mean by breakable toy is if you're a REST API developer, have a super fucking REST API project on your GitHub. That's like all the techniques and you keep it up to date, and when new stuff happens, you give it a go. If you're applying for REST API jobs and the only thing on your GitHub are like, well, I don't know, here's some React apps and here's a little mobile app and some other fidgety shit, that doesn't really tell the story that you're good at what you do. Just something to bear in mind. Show your expertise in your domain. And another controversial point is like publish and deploy. The only software value is running software, which sounds really mean, but like if it's not actually running and executed somewhere, it's really just theory crafting. It also shows your ability and your ownership over the whole software development lifecycle. So it's not just, hey, I can write code, but it's like I can get it out there. And I know the right way to build it, and we've got some really nice quality checks in there. You can use GitHub Actions or whatever fun stuff, and actually get it deployed somewhere that somebody can run or that can use it. If you can't do it that way, maybe you've got a mobile app, like show links to the App Store. Here's my app in the App Store. That's some kind of proof that you do what you do. Problem people have is shoemaker's children syndrome. I don't know if anyone's heard this phrase in English, that the shoemaker's kids have the worst shoes. And it's true, because you see some amazing engineers and then you go to their GitHub and their code is trash. It works, okay, but like if you're looking for a job, you should be showing you can comment, you follow good design patterns, you follow the right architecture, and you make good decisions, your code is really clear, your naming conventions, your code formatting. Don't be the person that's let down because you have a really good idea and really good skill, but then you don't show that you can just follow good practices. Another everything is skimping on profile details like LinkedIn. You can put a photo, you can put it in an event section. The whole thing can be marked down, so you can do some really fucking cool stuff there. And pin the repos you want people to see. If you do have a couple of repos and you're like, well, I'd really like a recruiter to see this one particular one I'm proud of, pin it, put it there. The last thing about GitHub is green square anxiety. I see an awful lot of people that they have, their whole green square calendar, and it's just chock-a-block, full of stuff. But it's crap. It's like, hey, I updated a typo. I wrote an extra piece of documentation. I added a new property. There's no value in that. This is the green square contribution chart of somebody that interviewed with the CTO of Intel this year. And look how sparse that is. Anybody that cares, they don't really matter. Don't worry about it too much. The last thing I want to talk about is your big four is your thing. Keep your minds out of the gutter. You should have one though. It should be a website, it should be a podcast, it should be a blog, it can be a Twitter account, it can be something. But something that shows your authority in the craft. So I mean, like if you solve bugs, write a little blog post. Here's a bug I have, and here's how I solved it. Get onto other people's podcasts, get onto other people's channels. Participate in a local dev group, and you're all kind of doing that here today with DevMad, but you can all present next time. You should position yourself as an authority of your craft. Alex Ramosi, I don't know if you guys know who this is, he owns a shitload of gym chains, he's super rich, but he says confidence comes as a result of evidence. And this is what your thing is. Everybody can have a CV, everybody can have a LinkedIn, you can pay people to make that shit for you, that's fine. But only you can put together something like this that's your secret sauce, so that's your personality, that is your choices, and it helps you stand out. But it also gives you something that those other things don't have, which is you can actually show your skills. So instead of just code, you can show your technical writing, you can show your planning, you can show diagrams, you could show what's called phronesis. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Aristotle's forms of knowledge. This is practical wisdom. So this is something I learned from doing something, not just something I read in a book or I learned on a course. So it's a really good way to get yourself out there and get ahead. Kind of done, I'll shut up now. We kind of learned today why you're not getting hired and what you can actually do about it and why that's happening. Hiring is super risky and it's super expensive. I don't know if anybody's actually had it explained to them before, but there it is. You need to apply for the right jobs. And by right jobs, I mean for you, given your career, given your profile, given where you are. And you also need to show an image of enablement, which is super important. And how you do that is getting your big four together: your CV, your LinkedIn, your GitHub, and your thing. That's your secret sauce, and that helps show yourself as an authority to craft, and that's going to get you head and shoulders above everybody who doesn't do that. That's it. Any questions? I don't know how over time we are, so I'm really sorry about that. But if anyone has more questions, find me later. We'll have a beer and we'll chat it out. Thanks very much for your time, folks.
So thank you, Philippe and Anton. Because Christmas is coming soon, we have a special gift for the speakers today.
Awesome.
If you don't mind to come.
Thanks a lot.
It's ready down there, so we can continue asking more.